All right, so ready to really take those English grammar skills to a whole other level. We're diving deep into this textbook called content.pdf. But don't worry, it's not about, memorizing a bunch of dusty old rules, right?
Yeah.
This is really about unlocking the secrets of how language actually works.
Yeah, think of it this way. We're going to dissect English sentences like a master mechanic taking apart an engine.
Oh, I like that.
Right. We're going to uncover the functions of each part, how they fit together, and ultimately how you can use them to build a powerful and effective communication machine.
Love that analogy.
Okay,
so let's start with the most basic element of language. We're talking about sentences. What makes a sentence tick? What are those essential ingredients you got to have?
Every sentence needs a subject, a verb, and usually an object.
Okay.
So it's like a mini drama unfolding.
Oh, okay.
The subject is the actor, the verb is the action, and the object is who or what is affected by that action.
Okay, I'm following you.
Okay.
So our textbook actually uses the example, the fat cat is chasing a mouse.
Right.
It's a pretty simple sentence, but it perfectly illustrates that core structure.
It does. It does. And I think it's so memorable because it creates this really vivid image in our minds.
Yeah.
The fat cat is our subject. The one performing the action is chasing. That's our action verb. And then a mouse that is the unfortunate recipient of the cat's attention.
Right. The object.
The object, exactly.
Okay. So if I were to say the playful puppy chewed the bone, would that follow that same structure?
Absolutely. Puppy is the subject. Chewed, that's the action verb. And bone is the object.
Yeah.
You've got it.
Boom. Okay. Now, what about those times when a sentence has more than one object?
Yeah.
I vaguely remember something about direct and indirect objects.
You're thinking back to those grammar lessons.
I am.
And you're right. So let's take the sentence. My friend gave me a book.
Okay.
Now, book is the direct object.
Okay.
Because it's directly receiving the action of gave. But me is the indirect object because it tells us to whom the book was given. Okay, so the indirect object adds another layer of information to the sentence. It's telling us who benefits from the action.
Exactly. It adds depth and precision to our communication.
Okay, this is where I start to see how grammar isn't just about following rules.
Right.
It's about using language strategically to express our ideas more clearly.
That's a fantastic insight. Now let's add another layer of complexity. Prepositions.
Prepositions, okay.
These are those little words that often get overlooked.
Yeah.
But they can make a huge difference in the meaning of a sentence.
So our textbook mentions prepositions like to, from, at, on, in, and under. They seem pretty basic. But I have a feeling there's more to them than meets the eye.
You're right to be suspicious. Prepositions are like the architects of relationships within sentences.
Oh, okay.
They tell us where things are located when actions occur or how things are connected.
So the textbook gives the example. My friend has sent a letter to me. The preposition to clarifies the direction of the letter. If we changed it to, my friend has sent a letter from me, the entire meaning shifts.
Precisely. It's amazing how such a small word can completely change the direction of a sentence.
It's like those tiny screws in a machine. They seem insignificant, but if you're missing one, the whole thing can fall apart.
Perfect analogy. Now let's zoom out from individual sentences
and
look at the building blocks of language itself.
Right.
The parts of speech.
Okay, parts of speech. So I remember learning about, nouns, verbs, and adjectives. But honestly, it's all a bit fuzzy now.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory. How many parts of speech are there?
There are 8. And they all work together like ingredients in a recipe to create meaningful language.
Okay.
So nouns are the meat.
Okay.
They name things, people, places, ideas, feelings.
Okay.
Think cat city, happiness, democracy.
Okay. Yeah, that's coming back to me. Nouns are the foundation, the things we're talking about.
Exactly. Pronouns stand in for nouns to prevent repetition. So instead of saying, the cat chased the mouse and the cat caught the mouse, we can just say, the cat chased the mouse and she caught it.
So pronouns make our sentences flow more smoothly.
Yes.
And prevent us from sounding repetitive.
You got it. Adjectives add flavor to those nouns, giving us more information about them. Think fluffy cat, bustling city, overwhelming happiness.
So adjectives are the descriptive words that help us create those vivid images in the listener's mind.
Exactly. Verbs are the action words, the ones that make things happen. Think run, jump, sing, think, or exist.
Right. So without verbs, our sentences would be pretty static and lifeless.
Absolutely. Adverbs describe those verbs, telling us how, when, or where the action occurs. Think quickly, loudly, yesterday, or everywhere.
Okay, and we already talked about prepositions. I'm starting to see how they fit into this bigger picture.
They're the connectors,
Yeah.
showing the relationships between different elements in the sentences. Then we have conjunctions,
Right.
which link words, phrases, or even entire sentences together.
Okay.
Think and but, or because, or although.
Right. So conjunctions help us build more complex sentences and express, more nuanced relationships between different ideas.
Right. And finally, we have exclamations, which are those bursts of emotion that often stand alone.
Right.
Think, wow, ouch, or hooray.
It's fascinating how all these different parts of speech work together to create this symphony of human language.
What's even more fascinating is that language is constantly evolving. Did you know that the word nice originally meant foolish or stupid?
No way. That's incredible. So the words we use today might have had completely different meanings in the past.
Exactly. Language is a living, breathing thing, constantly adapting to reflect the changing world around us.
Okay, so I'm ready to delve a little deeper into the workings of verbs.
Okay.
Let's talk about tenses.
Excellent. Tenses are how we express time in language, allowing us to talk about the past, the present, and the future.
So I remember learning about the simple present tense. It's used for habitual actions and facts.
Right.
But is there more to it than that?
You're on the right track. The simple present tense goes beyond just describing what's happening right now.
Okay.
It's also about expressing general truths and ongoing states.
Right.
For example, the Earth revolves around the sun.
Right.
This isn't just a present moment action, it's an enduring truth.
Okay, so the simple present tense helps us describe the world as we understand it,
Exactly.
from our everyday routines to timeless facts.
It paints a picture of the world that's both familiar and constantly in motion, now ready to step back in time with the simple past tense.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The simple past tense is all about completed actions, right? It's how we tell stories and recount historical events.
You got it. Think of it like this. The simple past tense is a time machine that transports us back to events that have already happened, allowing us to learn from the past and understand how we got to where we are today.
Our textbook actually uses the example, the explorers discovered new lands.
Right.
It's a simple sentence, but it evokes this sense of adventure and historical significance.
It does. And notice how the past tense creates a sense of completion. The action of discovering is finished.
Right.
But the impact of that discovery continues to resonate in the present.
So the simple past tense isn't just about recounting those events. It's about recognizing their lasting impact on the world around us.
Precisely. It's a powerful tool for understanding the interconnectedness of past, present, and future.
Now, how about the present perfect tense?
Ooh.
I remember struggling with this one in school. It always seemed a bit mysterious.
The present perfect tense can be tricky, but it's incredibly useful for connecting the past to the present.
Okay.
It's like a bridge between then and now.
Okay. That makes it a little less intimidating.
Good.
So it's not just about actions that happen in the past.
Right.
It's about actions that have a connection to the present moment.
Exactly. One way it does this is by expressing actions that started in the past but continue into the present. Think of the sentence, I have lived in the city for 10 years.
Right.
The action of living started in the past, 10 years ago, but it's still ongoing in the present.
So the present perfect tense helps us show how past actions shape our current reality.
It does. And it can also describe past actions that have a result or consequence that's still relevant in the present. For example, I have lost my keys.
Oh, no.
Right? The action of losing the keys happened in the past, but the consequence not being able to get into my house is very much a present problem.
It's like a ripple effect where the past action continues to create waves in the present.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Right.
Now, are you ready to peer into the future with the simple future tense?
Definitely. So the future tense, it's all about possibilities and predictions, right?
Yes.
It allows us to kind of imagine what might happen and make plans for what's to come.
You're absolutely right. It's the tense of anticipation and potential.
Right.
We use it to express intentions, make predictions, and even discuss hypothetical scenarios.
So the textbook gives the example, I will visit my grandparents tomorrow. A simple statement of intention about a future action.
It is. And we often use the simple future tense to make predictions based on our current knowledge and understanding of the world.
Okay, so a sentence like, scientists predict that the climate will continue to change. Would that be an example of the future tense used for prediction?
Exactly. It expresses an anticipated outcome based on scientific evidence and trends. Now, what about those times when we're not making a definite prediction, but rather exploring possibilities?
I'm thinking about sentences like, what will happen if we don't address climate change? That feels like we're stepping into the realm of like what ifs and hypothetical scenarios.
You're right. The future tense is a powerful tool for posing these kinds of questions and prompting discussions about potential consequences.
It allows us to imagine different futures and consider the impact of our actions.
It's a reminder that the future is not set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make in the present.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground with tenses. I'm feeling much more confident in my understanding of how they work.
You've done a great job grasping these concepts. Now let's move on to a topic that often causes confusion, the passive voice.
Okay, to be honest, the passive voice always seemed a bit intimidating. I know it's about changing the focus of the sentence, but I'd love a clearer explanation.
Okay, let's break it down. In the active voice, the subject performs the action.
Okay.
The dog chased the ball is a classic example. But in the passive voice, the subject receives the action.
Okay.
The ball was chased by the dog is the passive version.
Okay, so it's like flipping the script,
Yeah.
shifting the emphasis from the actor to the action itself.
Exactly. And this shift can be very powerful, especially in certain contexts. For instance, have you ever noticed how the passive voice is often used in news reports?
Yeah.
Especially when the doer of the action is unknown or unimportant. Headlines like "Building destroyed by fire" or "Man injured in a hit and run" highlight the event itself rather than the unknown perpetrator.
That makes sense. It allows us to report on events without having to, identify the actor, especially if that information is still unclear.
Right. And sometimes the passive voice is used to deliberately avoid mentioning the actor.
Ooh, interesting.
Especially when someone wants to downplay responsibility or create a sense of objectivity.
Yeah.
Think of phrases like, "mistakes were made," or "the decision was implemented."
Yeah, it's like a grammatical smokescreen,
Yes,
obscuring the person behind the action.
it can be. But the passive voice also has its legitimate uses. It can be very effective in scientific writing, for example, where the focus is often on the process or the result rather than the person conducting the experiment.
Right.
A sentence like, "the data was analyzed using a statistical software program," emphasizes the method and the outcome, not the individual researcher.
Okay, so understanding the passive voice helps us not only decipher its use, but also recognize the subtle ways it can be used to shape meaning and influence our perception of events.
It's a reminder that language is a powerful tool that can be used in many different ways, and it's up to us to be aware of those nuances.
Okay. I'm starting to see the passive voice in a new light. Now, can we talk about subject-verb agreement?
Yes.
I know it's crucial to make sure our subjects and verbs match up grammatically,
Yeah.
but I sometimes get tripped up by, tricky cases.
Subject-verb agreement is one of those fundamental rules that can make or break the clarity of a sentence. It simply means that the verb needs to reflect whether the subject is singular or plural.
Right.
So the cat sleeps is correct because cat is singular, and sleeps is the singular form of the verb. But the cat sleep is also correct because cats is plural, so we use the plural form of the verb sleep.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those tricky cases where it's not always clear whether a noun is singular or plural?
You're thinking about words like data or media, right?
Yeah.
They look plural, but in formal English, they're often treated as singular.
Okay.
So we would say the data is accurate, not the data are accurate.
That's one of those grammar rules that always trip me up. Is there a trick to remembering this?
Think of it this way. The verb is like a mirror reflecting the subject.
Okay.
If the subject is singular, the verb shows a singular reflection. If the subject is plural, the verb shows a plural reflection. It needs to be a perfect match.
Okay, that's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to tackle our final topic for this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
prepositions.
Excellent. We've already touched on prepositions, but now let's delve deeper into how they function as the little words that matter.
So our textbook emphasizes how even a slight change in preposition can dramatically alter the meaning of a sentence.
Yes.
I love this example from the Journey Through History section. Ancient Egyptians built an early civilization in the Nile Valley. The preposition in clarifies the location within the Nile Valley.
Yes.
If we changed it to on, the meaning would shift completely.
It's like a GPS for our sentences, guiding the listener to the precise location or relationship we want to convey.
And in that same section, there's another great example. The church played an important role in medieval Europe. Again, the preposition in the specifies the context,
Nah.
the role of the church within medieval Europe.
Those examples perfectly illustrate how prepositions provide crucial details that shape our understanding of a sentence.
So prepositions aren't just tiny words sprinkled throughout sentences. They're essential elements that add precision and depth to our language.
They're the architects of relationships within sentences, ensuring that each element is placed and understood in its proper context.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of the fundamentals of English grammar. We've covered so much ground already, from the basic building blocks of sentences to the complexities of tenses and the passive voice.
And you've demonstrated a remarkable grasp of these concepts.
Thank you.
You're well on your way to mastering English grammar.
I'm feeling more confident and empowered already. I can't wait to continue our grammar adventure and discover even more about how language works.
Let's do it. Now that we've explored those fundamental building blocks, let's zoom in on a specific area where prepositions really shine expressing time.
Ah, yes, time prepositions.
Yeah.
This is where I always get tripped up. Is it in June or on June? At 7 p.m. or on 7 p.m.?
It can be tricky, but there are some helpful patterns.
Okay.
Think of it like a timeline. We use in for longer periods, like months, years, or decades.
Right.
So you'd say in June or in the 21st century.
Okay, in for the big chunks of time. What about specific days or dates?
That's where on comes in. Think on Tuesday, on my birthday, or on July 4th.
So on is like pinning an event to a specific spot on the calendar.
Precisely. Now for the most precise moments, we use at. Think at noon, at midnight, or at 7:30 p.m.
At is for those laser-focused points in time. So in for the broad strokes, on for the specific days, and at for the pinpoint moments. I think I'm starting to get it.
You're picking it up quickly. Now let's see how these time prepositions work in action. This sentence from our textbook's Journey Through History section caught my eye. In ancient Egypt, the Nile flooded annually in July, bringing fertile silt to the land.
That's a great example. We have in ancient Egypt setting that general historical period, then in July specifying the month of the flooding.
And notice how those prepositions add clarity and precision to the sentence. We instantly understand the time frame of this historical event.
It's like those prepositions are little time machines transporting us to that specific moment in ancient Egypt.
I love that image. Now remember, these are general guidelines. English is full of delightful exceptions.
Of course.
But understanding these patterns will give you a strong foundation.
Speaking of foundations, we were exploring the passive voice earlier.
Yes.
We covered the simple present tense passive voice. But what about the past tense?
The past tense passive voice follows a similar structure, but instead of is or are as helping verbs, we use was or were. So, the cake was baked is in the passive voice past tense.
Okay, so to use a more dramatic example, instead of saying the storm ravaged the coastline, we can say the coastline was ravaged by the storm.
Exactly. And just like in the present tense passive voice, the past tense version is often used when the actor is unknown or unimportant, or when the writer wants to emphasize the action itself.
I'm seeing how the passive voice can be particularly powerful in historical writing. Take this sentence from our textbook's Journey Through History section. The Great Wall of China was built over centuries by various dynasties. The focus is on that monumental task of building the wall, not on the specific rulers or workers involved.
That's a great observation. The passive voice allows us to highlight the scale and historical significance of the event without getting bogged down in individual actors.
It's like panning out to a wide-angle shot, giving us a broader perspective on history.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Now let's consider how the passive voice can be used in scientific writing. This sentence from the Understanding Integrated Science excerpts caught my eye. Penicillin was discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928.
It's interesting that they use the passive voice here. We know who made the discovery, yet they choose to emphasize the discovery itself.
That's a good point. In scientific writing, the passive voice is often used to create a sense of objectivity and focus on the research findings rather than on the individual scientists involved.
It's like saying, look, here's this amazing discovery. The who is less important than the what.
Exactly. The passive voice can shift the focus from the researcher to the research itself.
So the passive voice is a versatile tool that can be used for various purposes, from creating a sense of objectivity to emphasizing the action over the actor.
It certainly is. Now, are you ready to tackle another essential aspect of grammar, pronoun agreement?
Pronoun agreement. That sounds intriguing.
Okay.
I know pronouns are those words that stand in for nouns, but I'm not sure I understand what it means for them to agree.
Pronoun agreement simply means that a pronoun must match its antecedent. the noun it's referring to in both number and gender.
Okay.
For example, if we say, the dog wagged her tail, the pronoun her agrees with its antecedent dog because both are singular and feminine.
Okay, so it's about making sure the pronoun and the noun it's replacing are aligned. Makes sense? But what happens when the antecedent could refer to either a male or a female?
Right.
Do we always have to use he or she?
That's a great question, and it highlights an important aspect of language: inclusivity. Traditionally, he was used as the default pronoun, but that can be seen as excluding women. Fortunately, we have options for using more gender-neutral language.
I'm all ears. What are some strategies for avoiding gender bias in our writing?
One approach is to use both he and she, as in, if a student forgets his or her book, they can borrow one from the library. However, this can sound a bit clunky.
Right. I've also noticed that using they as a singular pronoun has become more common.
Yes.
So we could say, if a student forgets their book, they can borrow one from the library.
Exactly. Using they as a singular pronoun is gaining wider acceptance as a way to promote gender inclusivity and avoid awkward phrasing. Another option is to rephrase the sentence entirely to avoid using a pronoun at all.
Okay.
For example, students who forget their books can borrow one from the library.
So by being mindful of pronoun agreement and choosing gender-neutral language, we can ensure that our writing is both grammatically correct and inclusive.
Precisely. It's about using language thoughtfully and respectfully. Now let's shift our focus back to verbs for a moment.
Okay.
We've explored tenses, but there's another fascinating aspect of verbs to uncover: mood.
Verb mood. That's a new one for me. What exactly does it mean?
Think of verb mood as the attitude or intention a writer conveys through the verb. There are three main moods in English: indicative, imperative, and subjunctive.
3 moods. Okay, let's break them down one by one. What's the indicative mood all about?
The indicative mood is the most common. It's used for statements of fact, opinions, or questions.
Okay.
Think, the sun is shining, I love chocolate, or do you like coffee?
So most of the sentences we use in everyday conversation are in the indicative mood.
Exactly. It's a default mode for conveying information and asking questions.
Okay. What about the imperative mood?
The imperative mood is the command center of language.
Okay.
It's used for giving orders or making requests. Close the door, please be quiet, or have a great day are all examples of the imperative mood.
So the imperative mood is all about getting things done. It's direct and action-oriented.
Exactly. And notice how the subject is often implied in imperative sentences. It's like the speaker is assuming you're already on board with the action.
Now for the most mysterious of the 3, the subjunctive mood.
The subjunctive mood is the mood of possibilities, wishes, and hypothetical situations.
Okay.
It often uses the base form of the verb regardless of the subject.
Could you give us an example?
Of course. If I were a bird, I would fly to a tropical island. Notice how we use were instead of was, even though the subject is I. This signals that we're dealing with a hypothetical situation.
So the subjunctive mood allows us to explore ideas that aren't necessarily based in reality.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for expressing wishes, giving advice, or making suggestions. I wish it were summer. I suggest you study for the test. Or if you were to go to the store, could you buy some milk? Are all examples of the subjunctive mood at work.
I'm starting to see how the subjunctive mood adds a layer of nuance and complexity to our language. It allows us to move beyond stating facts and explore different possibilities.
Precisely. It's a reminder that language is not just about describing the world as it is, it's also about imagining how it could be.
This exploration of verb moods has been fascinating. I'm really starting to appreciate the subtle ways that verbs can shape the meaning and tone of our sentences.
Verbs are truly the workhorses of language. Now, how about we shift gears and tackle those tricky verb forms, participles and gerunds?
To be honest, participles and gerunds have always sounded a bit intimidating to me.
Right.
They seem so technical.
They might sound complex, but they're actually quite straightforward once you understand their basic functions. They're both derived from verbs, but they act like different parts of speech.
Okay, I'm ready to demystify participles and gerunds. Where do we begin?
Let's start with participles. They're verb forms that end in ing or a, or sometimes n for irregular verbs, and function as adjectives. They add descriptive details to nouns or pronouns. For example, the running water or the fallen leaves.
So it's like the verb is stepping in to play the role of an adjective, adding a layer of description to the noun.
Exactly. And the ing participles often describe an ongoing action, while the a participles describe a completed action.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So the blaring alarm suggests an alarm that is currently going off, while the broken alarm suggests an alarm that has already malfunctioned.
Precisely. Now let's move on to gerunds. There are also verb forms ending in ing, but they function as nouns. Think of them as verbs transformed into activities or things.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I enjoy to swim, we would say, I enjoy swimming. Swimming becomes the thing you enjoy. Gerunds allow us to talk about actions as if they were objects or concepts.
Our textbook has a great example. Reading is essential for learning.
Right.
Reading is the subject of the sentence acting like a noun.
That's a perfect illustration. Gerunds are essential for expressing ideas concisely and effectively.
So participles and gerunds add versatility to our language, allowing us to use verbs in creative ways to describe and name things.
They're like those multi-purpose tools that can be used for a variety of tasks. Now, as we near the end of our deep dive, let's take a moment to appreciate the often overlooked heroes of written language, punctuation marks.
Punctuation. Those little dots, dashes, and squiggles that can make a world of difference in how our writing is understood.
Think of punctuation marks as the traffic signals of language. They guide the reader, prevent accidents, and ensure a smooth flow of ideas.
A well-placed comma can be a lifesaver.
It can.
It can prevent misunderstandings and clarify the relationships between different parts of a sentence.
Absolutely. Commas are essential for separating items in a list, setting off introductory phrases, and creating pauses that enhance readability.
And those more dramatic punctuation marks like the exclamation point and the question mark add emotional punch to our writing.
You're right. They allow us to convey excitement, urgency, doubt, or curiosity.
And quotation marks are essential for indicating direct speech, setting off titles of works, or highlighting words that have a special meaning.
They help us distinguish between our own words and the words of others, adding clarity and precision to our communication.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've explored the hidden depths of English grammar, from the basic building blocks of sentences to the subtleties of verb moods, participles, gerunds, and even punctuation.
And you've demonstrated a remarkable ability to grasp these concepts and apply them to real-world examples.
I'm feeling empowered to use language with greater intention and precision. It's like I've unlocked a secret code that allows me to communicate more effectively.
And the best part is that you're the artist wielding those tools. You get to choose how you combine words, phrases, and grammatical structures to create your own unique style and express your ideas in a way that resonates with your audience.
I'm starting to see grammar in a whole new light. It's not about being perfect or adhering to rigid rules. It's about understanding how language works and using it strategically to achieve your communication goals.
That's exactly the mindset we want to foster. Grammar shouldn't be a source of anxiety. It should be a source of empowerment. It's about making informed choices about how you use language to connect with others and share your ideas with the world.
This deep dive has been a real game changer for me. I feel like I've leveled up my grammar skills and gained a deeper appreciation for the artistry of language.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your grammar journey. There's always more to learn and explore. The more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become.
Now that I have a better understanding of the mechanics of English, I'm excited to put my knowledge into practice.
That's the key. Don't be afraid to experiment with different grammatical structures, try out new vocabulary, and find your own unique voice.
Thank you for guiding me through this fascinating exploration of English grammar. It's been an incredible journey.
It's been a pleasure sharing my passion for language with you. And remember, the power of language is in your hands. Use it wisely, use it creatively, and never stop exploring its possibilities.
It's amazing how much we take punctuation for granted, until we start really thinking about its impact on our writing. It's like the conductor of an orchestra. It guides the rhythm and flow of our sentences.
A perfect analogy. Without punctuation, our writing would just be this jumbled mess of words. But with carefully chosen punctuation marks, we can create clarity, emphasis, and even evoke, emotions in the reader.
So this deep dive has really opened my eyes to the incredible power and versatility of English grammar.
Yeah.
It's so much more than just a set of rules.
Yeah.
It's a toolkit for crafting effective communication.
And the best part is you're the artist wielding those tools. You get to choose how you combine words, phrases, and grammatical structures to create your own unique style and express your ideas in a way that resonates with your audience.
Yeah, I'm starting to see grammar in a whole new light. It's not about being perfect or adhering to these rigid rules. It's about understanding how language works and using it strategically to achieve your communication goals.
That's exactly the mindset we want to foster. Grammar shouldn't be a source of anxiety. It should be a source of empowerment. It's about making informed choices about how you use language to connect with others and share your ideas with the world.
Well, this deep dive has been a real game changer for me.
Good.
I feel like I've leveled up my grammar skills and gained a deeper appreciation for the artistry of language.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your grammar journey. There's always more to learn and explore. The more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become.
Now that I have a better understanding of the mechanics of English, I'm excited to put my knowledge into practice.
That's the key. Don't be afraid to experiment with different grammatical structures. Try out new vocabulary and find your own unique voice.
Well, thank you so much for guiding me through this fascinating exploration of English grammar. It's been an incredible journey.
It's been a pleasure sharing my passion for language with you. And remember, the power of language is in your hands. Use it wisely, use it creatively, and never stop exploring its possibilities.